Hey guys, welcome to another edition of our Youth Sunday Talks. Today I'll be picking up where we left off in Matthew. We're coming to the end now, only got a couple of chapters left. I'll be reading from chapter 27, verse 57 through till chapter 28, verse 15. And this is all about the burial of Jesus and his resurrection. Okay, so this is what it says. It says that as evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he'd cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. The next day, the one after Preparation Day, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. "Sir," they said, "we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise his disciples may come and steal the body and tell the people that he has been raised from the dead. This last deception will be worse than the first." "Take a guard," Pilate answered. "Go, make the tomb as secure as you know how." So they went and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting the guard. Okay, so just to pause there, we've got this story of Jesus being buried in a tomb, and it's a bit unusual because in this day and age, in the context of this story, the people who were being crucified were not normally allowed to be buried. Normally, their bodies would be left up on the crosses to rot and for the animals to feast upon. There's a nice little image for you. It wasn't glamorous, and often people want to honour the dead. They want to have a nice burial, something to say goodbye, somewhere to visit, to pay their respects, but none of those privileges were afforded to the people who committed crimes and were crucified. So it's a bit unusual then that Jesus is allowed to be buried. However, we know about Pilate in the story. He has already washed his hands of the matter. If you remember, he thinks that Jesus is innocent, and it was only because of the crowd, because of the mob mentality, that he felt the need to appease them by handing Jesus over and ordering that he be crucified. Pilate was scared of a riot, and we see here again that the Pharisees and the chief priests are coming to him and saying, well, you need to be careful because this guy said he's going to come back from the dead in 3 days' time. And Pilate seems again to be scared that if that happens, something might happen that is detrimental to him, his situation of power and his community. He doesn't want a riot. He wants peace. He wants to keep his position. And so he says, okay, yeah, go and seal the tomb the best way you know how. And so it's interesting that in this story, it says Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth. I just think that's interesting. The clean of the linen, again, a kind of metaphor for purity of Christ, for the perfect sacrifice that he is. And also, if we think back to Psalm 16 verse 10, where it says, "For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol." Sheol, that is a dark place where the dead would go. "Nor will you let your Holy One see decay." The word decay in the Hebrew, shachaf, I don't know if I've pronounced that right. I'm not Hebrew, but has various meanings. Decay, like I said, to be spoiled, to be corrupted, to go to ruin. And so the message being that God is not going to allow that to happen to Jesus' body, to Jesus. just a reminder that he is a pure and perfect sacrifice all the way up until the end. And so they placed his body in the new tomb and they rolled a big stone in front of the entrance. So some commentators think that there was a nice spherical stone that was rolled in front of the entrance. Other people argue that it was perhaps a cork-shaped boulder that was pushed into the hole. Either way, it was covered and would have required great strength to move. And then we also have this information that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting opposite the tomb. If you decide to read the other Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John obviously being the Gospels, then there are various different accounts of which women were there, which Mary was there, etc, etc. General consensus being that there were 3 women there. And moving on, they decide to place this seal upon the tomb, and they also have Roman guards there, so they're going to be there with their spears and their armour ready to defend. And you can bet your life that they're going to defend it properly, because if they fail, then they're going to have to go and fall on their swords and kill themselves, because that's just kind of how the Roman Empire worked. If you were dishonoured, you'd reclaim your honour by falling on your sword and stuff like that. These guards were going to be scared for their lives to try and do their jobs right, so they were going to protect it. And there was a big stone in the way, so who's going to roll that out? And then they said they put a seal on, which by some accounts would have been a clay seal, which would have had some rope and a rock and a kind of mechanism where they've imprinted the royal imperial Roman seal on there, and anyone who moves a stone by doing so will break the seal, kind of like the wax seals on a letter. You're going to know that somebody's opened it, and then the Roman Empire is going to be after you and they're going to kill you for opening it. So all of these things to take into account. I think that it's incredible that despite all these things being put in place, Jesus still raises from the dead and overcomes all of these obstacles. In fact, a man called Jerome, who is a commentator on Matthew, he wrote this. He said, the greater the precautionary care, the more fully is revealed the power of the resurrection. Okay, so moving on, it says this: Jesus has risen. It says, after the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, he has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay, then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." So just this beautiful image of an angel, pure and white, coming down, and God just overcoming all of these schemes of man to stop Jesus rising again from the dead. It's almost laughable. And then moving on, the guards report, while the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep." I mean, how are you not going to wake the guards up when you're rolling away a massive boulder? It seems questionable at best, but anyway. "If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day. Of course, we know in our modern society that we are Christians and there are other people who are Jewish, and they believe that Jesus was not the Son of God, he was not the Messiah, and this is perhaps another horrible deception that has been circulated that has prevented people from believing that Jesus really is the Son of God. Jesus would ask that of you today. Who do you say that I am? It's interesting as well, I think, just as a last final note, that the people who were the first to see Jesus resurrected were women, and at the time, the historical context of the story, women were not allowed to be involved in politics, and they weren't even taught how to write. So the account of a woman at this time would have been hard to believe for some. I just think it's interesting because it speaks elsewhere in the Bible about, and I say elsewhere in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians, it speaks about Jesus, about God choosing the weak things of this earth to shame the strong, and choosing, those kind of things. It's just, I found that really encouraging for me personally, that actually whenever I'm feeling weak and I'm feeling like, God, why on earth would you choose me? I've got nothing good to offer. That actually his message is that he delights in choosing the weak things, that he delights in choosing the foolish to shame the wise. And this is just a beautiful story and reminder of Jesus as the perfect sacrifice, and all of the hurdles and all of the things, the prophecies that have come true, and the things of man that have been put in the way, that God's just come crashing through and overcome them all and said, "No, my son is going to rise. I said he would, and you are now free to come back into relationship with me." That veil in the temple has been torn in two, where once that relationship was broken because of Adam and Eve, because of mankind's choice to go their own way, actually in the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus, a way has been made to restore that relationship so that you can come back, running back to your Father's arms, and we can worship him, and we can say that he is holy, and he will welcome us with open arms and say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So welcome back home, my son, my daughter, I love you. So just encourage you over this next period of time in your life to really spend some time reflecting on Jesus' resurrection, his death and resurrection. What does that mean to you? Is it a joyous thing for you? Is it a subject of confusion? I would encourage you to continue to study the subject, and I just really hope that this talk blessed you. I'm sure we'll see you guys again shortly for the last chapter of Matthew, which talks about the Great Commission, our response. How do we respond once we have acknowledged that Jesus is who he says he is, and we have acknowledged that what happened, that he died and rose again? What is our response? I'm sure you'll find out next time. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a blessed week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay, thanks.